Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And if you're a reason why you guys who come in here all the time and hang out with me and sit through that spiel, here's a little bit of something for you, right? Grateful that you hang out for those 5 seconds where I'm trying to draw in a few more people to join us here, right? Maybe have an opportunity to grow alongside us or introduce something new to the mixture that maybe we can take on and move forward with. But in that gift, is that energy. When I first come in and I have that giggle, because I do laugh at myself, because there is that few seconds there where I'm going, don't, right? Because it's right, you're going live. You have no idea who's sitting out there in the world and watching and listening to what you have to say, right? And you just gotta laugh at yourself. And that's what I do, because in those few seconds, right, you hear me come in and I'm just like, that's what I'm doing. I'm laughing at myself because soon as I hit that live button, kind of like what we were talking about yesterday, right? You can't cry over spilt milk. You can't. You're live now, right? So you fly with it. So I always have that little bit of giggle, and it adds to the energy. So for those of you who do hang out with me, right? For those 5 seconds at the beginning of my lives, I hope you get something out of that energy, right? If not, just a giggle. You guys, this week we've been talking all week on this absolutely amazing word, and that we thought that we would do, and it was our 25th word. This word, this we had this week, this word flexibility, being able to stretch outside of ourselves and, not necessarily talking about being flexible in a physical way, but I think with the topic that we're going to connect it with today, it might be a good thing to look at when we talk about flexibility, is in that physical part of us, that part that just has to survive. Yes, you guys, we are attaching flexibility, right, with this topic of evolution. This topic of evolution that eats at me like some of these other topics eat at me. It's meant to be a part of my life, it's meant to be a part of my movement. And so, I thought today, evolution, and I go into the documentaries, and even though I am not even close to being an expert on these topics, I do believe that I might be able to hold my own, if not just taking interest in the actual expert who's trying to explain something to me, right? Sometimes we're a student, sometimes we're a spectator, right? Sometimes we're a participant. Sometimes we're a teacher. We have to know to each one of us which one we are at any given moment. Let me have a sip. We're going to have a sip of my strawberry peach drink. Trying to stay hydrated. Okay. So talking about, I just wrote a couple of things, because you know what I did, you guys. This morning I got up and things come to my mind. I'm getting trained to really pay attention to those things that come across my path, and I don't even mean physically come across my path, but sometimes just in my thoughts, just sometimes in the experiences or the conversations, or something that I'm looking at, or something that I'm remembering. And I remembered last night when we were talking, I was thinking, evolution and flexibility, how they would go together, right? Totally forgot about it. And then this morning, when I'm thinking, okay, well, we're going to do contemplation as we do a few chores around the house and stuff, we have this word flexibility this week. So, while you're doing your thing, you're just going to think about it. But before you think about it, Cindy, why don't you Google it? So I Googled evolution and flexibility. Sorry, I just closed that window, but we'll just go into my history. It should be right there. There it is. Flexibility and evolution. How does behavioral flexibility impact evolution? This was really interesting, you guys. It is believed that behavioral flexibility may be important in driving evolutionary diversification across animals, right? We talk a lot about different perspectives. We talk a lot about it takes all kinds to make the world. And, in my movement forward, I've become even myself to realize that this person, Cindy, that I thought I was, this was Cindy, but there were so many aspects, right? And so many different perspectives and so many parts of Cindy that this was only the visual. This was only the visual. But if it all came together, right? Right? And not necessarily this would be Cindy, but this would be something else, because that's our evolution in our growth, is being able to have these understandings, right? And a lot of it is in the acceptance and in the absorption of the evidence, right? That we just become larger in that. It is believed that behavioral flexibility may be important in driving evolutionary diversification across animals. We test this hypothesis within the primates and the taxonomic group, with considerable among lineage variation in both species diversity and behavioral flexibility. So when I read that, the first thing that shot to my mind was this dynamic family in my upbringing. My father, my mother, my sisters, right? Even now moving forward, my nieces and my nephews, right? That each of us is so different. We're like our own species in itself. And I sometimes wonder, and I like, how did I land myself in that family? How did I survive it? Right? And not only how did I survive it, how did I end up so different than everybody else? And on top of that, how come everybody else is so different from everybody else? And so it makes you think how we rub each other. And I'm thinking, this idea of when we're created, right? Right? And we get these chromosomes, those 23 chromosomes. We get those chromosomes, and we get some of those chromosomes from our mother and some of those chromosomes for our father. We don't know which ones, right? The blue eyes, my dad's side, right? The blue eyes, my dad's side. I think the intellect, surprisingly, even though my mother only went to grade 7, I think that comes from my mother's side. Epigenetically, though, going back possibly a couple hundred years, even going back. But, we pick up these things epigenetically that we don't have. They're just part of us. They're just facts, and they factor in this evolutionary process, right? But that ability to be flexible, right? Building up those experiences, having those tools, learning how to chop wood, learning how to build a house, learning how to cook bread. Hello, Andrew. Hello. I'm on the spiel this morning. We are talking about evolution, but we're also talking about the flexibility and its relationship to evolution. I think we're coming, and I think it's very clear through the evidence, right? Because we all want to see the evidence, and the evidence is out there for the looking at and the delving into if we so wish to, right? Sometimes you can just know what's going on. And you can tell that this world is messed up, and we are about to go into some big, big, impactful changes. And I think lots of us have been pretty comfy with that couch and the remote control. And right when the poop hits the fan, are we going to be able to, right, maneuver, right? Are we going to be able to come together as a team, as a network? Are we going to have the resources? Are we going to have the digital age to communicate with each other and to pass that information on? Things are going to look so different. But again, that's part of the evolutionary process. And being flexible means to be able to adapt and conquer and ride those waves and deal with what you have to deal with, and go through that struggle and go through that pain. Doesn't mean forever. Everything has to end. Everything has to resolve itself at some point, right? And just living life, we know that for our own fact. Sometimes it's just a matter of just enduring it until, right, it's out of the system, or we're out of that situation, or that experience has passed, right? Sometimes it's just crying, talking, and time that we need. But we're going through, I think, some big wake up calls, and I do believe a lot of the lessons that I've been taking in the past few years is in that preparedness, that preparedness for myself, right? And not just for myself, but to be able to come here and laugh at myself and giggle at my hesitation when I'm going to hit my live button, when in all reality, right, there is that urgency. If we're talking evolution, right, we're talking about those kind of changes, right? There is that little bit of heat, that breath on the back of our necks, that little bit of urgency to work on things. 100%. Sometimes that's why we are put in those situations, I think, to live our lives by ourselves so that we can learn to fend for ourselves. But in saying that, I have to just say what come to my mind is, what about all those kids that are sitting in front of their video games, totally compulsed, totally immersed in those video games, totally unaware of what's going? Is that on purpose so that, not all of us are supposed to experience that awareness of what's to come, or the struggles or the pain, that some of us can just sleep through it because it basically that's what it seems like it is? Or because those video games are so violent and so gruesome and so challenging, are they in preparedness for the digital age and what could come? Are we training little firefighters and, right, weapon experts and puzzle solvers, right? I don't know, because that's got to be part of the flexibility in the movement forward, isn't it? That has to be. It's what we don't know. Again, like we go back to yesterday when we were talking about we can only control, right, what we can control. And something comes across my mind and I go and Google it and I show up here right after in that live. That is my, right? Maybe that lesson isn't for me, right, in the moment. Or maybe that lesson is totally for me, but no matter what it is, I still show up here every day, right? So if I know that, it's going to be possibly useful for somebody else that might come across my path in their experience of their day, or an experience of a moment they're having, right? And as a group, we are much likelier to survive in sharing what we know. Of course, we want to make ourselves indispensable, right? We have to. It's our survival. It's our survival, right? You kidnap someone for a ransom, you're not going to get rid of that person that you kidnapped because that's your ransom. If you don't show up with that ransom, or you don't show up with that what you've ransomed, you're not going to get what you've been ransoming for, if that makes sense, right? That as a group we can get much further, right? Those things that we're giving, right, to each one of us, those are our skills. That's what you bring to the village of life, right? If you're the blacksmith, you're going to bring that skill of being a blacksmith, right? If you're the dancer, right, you're light on your toes. Cindy's not getting on her tippy toes, not a chance. But maybe you're a dancer. Maybe you bring that lightness to the end of the day when everybody's been working hard in the fields, and right, and you bring that lightness, even if it's in your own struggle in your toes to her, you're bringing something to the table, and that's your gift. I can't do that, right? Some things are yours, but some things are for everybody. And I think, right, we look at flexibility and its relationship to our evolution, to stopping the possibility of us becoming another just another extinct animal. Oh my goodness. I don't know about you guys, but I want to keep going on, right? Lifetime after lifetime. And hopefully, right? Just like, if I was an employer, right, in what I'm doing in my job right now, I'd be very grateful for Cindy as an employee because, right, I am the best employee for the job that's putting in the roof over my head in this moment, right? But at the same time, I want to be able to be considered that way in the other aspects of my life, that I might look at myself and go, oh my goodness, right? Those other parts of me. So lucky we stumbled on to Cindy, right? That she's not married and got a dozen kids that she has to tend to, that she has this time and this energy and this gumption and this idea that she can laugh at herself when she's hitting that live button, that she can come forward, right? Let's take full advantage of this, right? In a good way, in a baby step kind of way, that I'm still smiling and I'm still looking at this as an adventure, which I do, which is part of that riding the waves. That's why we call it riding the waves, right? That's surf air. It's supposed to be lots of fun, but at the same time, it's a little scary too, right? Especially if you got a shark swimming right underneath your surfboard, but you don't know, right? You don't know. So we have to be flexible and not necessarily 100% be prepared, because that's hypervigilant, and we don't want to be so wrapped up in our hypervigilant it takes out away from our appreciation and our enjoyment for what we're doing, right? But we want to make sure that we're moving forward as a creature of this planet, that, right, those of us who are waking up to some different ideas, right, some different ideas, possibly some better ideas, and what we can create moving forward that makes these kind of conversations possibly obsolete and not necessary, right? But that's only going to be in our choices, and we're seeing things are moving pretty fast, so we're being expected to move a little bit with that. That's the urgency, right? But at the same time, you take on the most that you can, and you don't overextend, you don't overpush, you don't take away from Peter to pay Paul, right? You don't devour yourselves and you don't devour others. That's a lesson for myself because I show up here. It gets to be a lesson for everybody. Okay, you guys. That's my good chair. I am off to work. I gave myself 45 minutes for a little something in the conversation today. I'm going to have 15 minutes to put my coat on. I'm not wearing my snow pants. It's only -2 out today. We're having the most beautiful winter, you guys. I don't know. I live in an amazing province to start with that gives us a true experience of winter. And it should truly be -40 degrees outside, but it's just so beautiful. -2 Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's pretty nice. It's slushy. The roads are slushy. So I just got my army fleece on, an extra pair of army fleece on, just in case I should decide that I'm going to walk home tonight. And yeah, we're just going to go to work and start the weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we'll be back into it, right? And then we'll be back into it. Hit that live, Cindy. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer, and we'll see each other tomorrow. Thank you, Andrew. Take care, dear.